The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Get more at servingworlds.com. 43. Padalecki waved Willard over when two more bodies started up the access tube. He pointed the muzzle of his weapon through the edge of the man-sized opening in the tube and drew a bead on two soldiers climbing up the long ladder. "They're cool," he called over his shoulder. "Sort of." As he looked down at her form hidden behind the larger males, a text-only message from No arrived in his implant. "Don't shoot your brother." "In-law," Willard corrected loudly down the tube as he slung his weapon, then repeated the words to Padalecki. "Brother-in-law. And if you saw my wife, you'd forgive me." Moments later, he slapped Jake's head as it came level with the floor. "How about a little warning before approach next time?" "I pinged you 3 floors down, moron," Jake grunted. "FleetNet isn't getting any better, I see," Noel said. Lee stood back while Willard greeted Jake and the Major. When she caught sight of him, she stood straighter. She smiled and her eyes crinkled in the corners. Jake lumbered past her, an overjoyed smile on his ugly mug as he lifted Lee into a bear hug. "God damn! Good to see you, Captain." Okay, really good to see you too," Lee laughed. Jake set him down, his face clouding over. He ran his hands over Lee's shoulders, feeling the outline of the wave emitters below his collarbone. "What the hell?" "It's a long story, Jake. I'm okay." "Yeah?" Jake asked, concern behind his eyes as he took in the scars on Lee's bald scalp. "Yeah." He slapped his former sergeant. "Command Master Sergeant, huh?" Lee said to the big man. "Yep, glorified babysitter." He jerked a thumb at Major Carson. "But No here has potential." "I remembered you looking a little bit less dinged up," the Major said as she walked over, holding out her hand. "Really?" Lee shook the hand warmly. "We all got a bit dinged up at the row." "Sure did." Willard walked up on Jake's left and kicked his shin. Jake hunched over and closed his eyes. "I lost the right foot, you idiot." Willard nodded. "I know. I just wanted to make sure you still had the other one." Jake was trying to fight the grin, but soon gave in and wrapped a muscled arm around Willard, who returned the embrace and then squeezed tighter. He lost the bear hug match, but even when the world was falling to shit, he'd taken a minute to compete with Jake about something. And that was natural. That was normal. Or a little bit of normal, and Lee held on to that tight. "You can't see my souvenir from the row, but one lung's artificial." Major Carson slapped her side up high. "On the plus side, it can store concentrated ox, and I can breathe like a reacher now. The damn thing feels cold in my chest every morning, but I kept my fingers and toes, thanks to you," Carson told Lee. "So I guess I can live with a chestal upgrade, Captain Jean." "Just Lee amongst ourselves, Major." "Then I'm Noel. Or No." "Yay!" Willard cheered. "Now we're all friends. Can we get these two patched up, maybe?" Jake and Noel exchanged confused looks. "You guys just got pinged with implant updates, right?" Willard asked. The Major and her CSO both nodded. Willard and Lee exchanged a serious look. Lee stepped forward, lifted a hand behind Noel's head, and closed his eyes. Willard reached for the back of Jake's head as well. His brother-in-law pulled away. "Mind explaining?" "Some bad guys figured out mind control by implant. You want to let me patch you against it or take your chances, dumbass?" "Do it," Jake grunted and closed his eyes. "I knew implants were a stupid risk." "So's unprotected sex," Willard muttered, focusing inwards. "But your parents still had you." "Ha ha," Jake growled. "Good to see you too, bro." As ranking officer, and with Lee's old unit vouching for her, Noelle found herself making decisions. After she had Willard and Lee repeat everything. Twice. Then she got to work. The doctors and patients were safest in the tender for now, given what Samin and Frankie had told her lay ahead. Their prisoner, Dr. Mentel, balked at the idea of tagging along with the group, but before Noelle could say a word, Samin sorted the doctor out with a hand to her throat and a few sweet murmured words. Mentel stared at Samin with a healthy fear, bordering on an unhealthy respect, and held out her hands. Samin sliced the improvised cuffs off, and Mentel hopped into the tube quick as a bunny. The fleet special investigator smiled at Noelle. As usual, the deployed smile didn't warm her eyes. Glad she's on our side. Willard encrypted the door lock to the tender and showed the young doctor with glasses, Kincaid, how to manually slot and lock the airlock from the inside. Then Noelle started up the tube, and the group followed tightly behind her. We know Fleet pulled the plug on Mentel's override project, Lee supplied, but someone kept her team working together off the books. Someone with high-level network access to keep her team working undisturbed on Ryson and sneak the override out in that system patch just now. It's a system-wide update, Frankie called out from somewhere below. Every implant on the ship that accepted the patch is now infected with the override. The puppet virus, Jake intoned, trying the words out. Puppet virus, Frankie panted. Yeah, I like it. God, listen to you wheeze, Samin teased. You've got the lungs of an earther, Jake and Frankie both said, over top of Samin. The group cracked familiar smiles at Frankie's lungs' expense, but too soon Noelle pulled them back to business. An override to make us follow orders we don't agree with, and shut our bodies down if and when our brains can root around it? Noelle's stomach revolted. Slavery. Who's controlling it? How? Someone with top-level admin access, Frankie grunted. And how does it work exactly, Dr. Mentel? Silence. Go ahead, Karina, Samin said, her voice sharp as a knife edge. Mentel sighed. The admin has to choose and activate a target via implant. As soon as the admin activates the override, the body starts working for them. I've never been able to keep the control mechanism functioning for more than 3 hours before the brain is back in control. So we just explain it nicely, Willard called out. Once people know about override, they'll roll out the red carpet to the council room. It would take too long, Jake said. Reacher ships are still pouring defensive fire on Earther ships, and how long do you think it'll be before the Earthers fire back? Or someone overrides our gun teams and makes them shoot to kill the Earthers as excuse to take out more ships, or drop them dead, or both. We also don't know who's part of the plan, Lee replied. We don't want to tip our hand. The mastermind could move on to whatever they've got planned next before we stop them. Or switch on the override for everybody between us and them, Samin agreed. Turn them into guard dogs and point them right at us. Why haven't we turned on returns jammers then? Private Padalecki asked. Willard whistled. Out of the mouths of babes. Aw, thanks, Lieutenant. Jake and Willard simultaneously growled versions of, he's married. Jamming returns network will leave us blind too. Noelle worried about that, but the override was too powerful to leave in operation. Do it, Frankie, Noelle ordered. On it, Frankie puffed. Okay, I'm running out of back doors, but Return's electronic countermeasures are now scrambling every network aboard. The bad guys can't add anyone to their zombie horde. Who are the bad guys, Doctor? Noelle asked. Who supplies you with your access for override? Despite what Noelle gauged as Mentel's healthy and sane fear of Samin, the ring of the good doctor's boots climbing rungs was her only answer. You have been listening to Reach, The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, All This by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Hear more of the story at ServingWorlds.com. Thank you for listening.